Serving as a sniper during World War II carried a stigma worse than that of any other combatant, forcing survivors to grapple with the lifelong repercussions of their actions, assuming, naturally, that they managed to make it through alive. In this exploration, we'll examine the profound impact sniping had on those peering through the sights, on the troops who became its targets, and the terrifying atrocities it unleashed in warfare. After the First World War concluded in 1918, the major powers took an odd turn by swiftly discarding their elite assassins. At the armistice, Britain's sniper forces were at their zenith, equipped with custom rifles, precisely tuned scopes, and expert shooters honed over years of practice. Yet, in mere months, everything was scrapped, rifles disassembled, optics auctioned to amateur hunters, and the hard-earned expertise from 4 years of conflict left to vanish. This move wasn't altogether shocking given the British Army's mindset back then. The top brass had always opposed sniping, deeming it dishonourable and unsportsmanlike. The idea of a concealed gunman methodically picking off foes clashed with the traditions of mounted charges and hand-to-hand bayonet fights that shaped their officer class. So, with peace declared, they eagerly erased the practice. When conflict reignited in 1939, Britain confronted the war virtually sniper-free, a shortfall that German marksmen exploited ruthlessly. The United States mirrored this neglect. As World War II erupted, the US military proved even more ill-equipped for accurate long-range fire than its British counterparts. What's especially striking is that Germany, whose precision shooters had inflicted heavy casualties on Allied forces in the previous war, also disbanded its dedicated sniper formations in the years between conflicts. Only after enduring severe setbacks from Soviet snipers did Germany revive top-tier training, and that delay stretched until 1943. Amid this widespread amnesia, one country stood apart, from a source that might surprise you: the Soviet Union. They hadn't forgotten the shame of World War I, when Russia fielded no specialized snipers and its troops fell prey to highly effective German and Austro-Hungarian sharpshooters who struck without mercy. Drawing lessons from that ordeal, Soviet strategists vowed to prevent a repeat. As Western nations tore down their sniper setups, the Soviets constructed theirs anew from scratch. Yet prior to World War II fully igniting, a stark illustration emerged of how lethal skilled snipers could prove. It unfolded in the frigid winter of 1939, during a conflict that escaped most global attention. And no figure embodies the dread wrought by expert snipers more vividly than the notorious Simo Häyhä, whose story demands mention even before delving into the full terrors of sniping in World War II. As the Soviet Union launched its assault on Finland in November 1939, victory seemed assured thanks to their vast advantages in manpower. Superior numbers of tanks, planes, and supplies across the board pointed to an inevitable triumph by standard metrics. But those metrics overlooked individuals like Häyhä. He had enlisted in the Finnish Civil Guard at age 17, and with the invasion, he was primed for action. His tool of choice was a Finnish-modified Mosin Nagant rifle, dubbed the Spitz for its front sight evoking a Spitz dog's profile. Curiously, he shunned a telescopic sight, though that choice had solid justification. Scopes demand elevating the head more, heightening the risk of spotting. In Finland's harsh winters, lenses would steam over and fail, while glare from the sun off the glass could betray a hideout. His camouflage methods were painstaking. He'd hold snow in his mouth to stifle breath clouds, and he'd mound packed snow ahead to mask his form and muffle the snow spray from firing. Daily, he'd relocate before dawn to a preset spot and hold motionless past dusk. The toll was catastrophic. Official Finnish records list 259 verified rifle kills, with his officer attributing another 259 via submachine gun in nearer fights. Häyhä's personal account in his memoir tallied around 500 overall, peaking at 25 Soviet casualties in one day. The Soviets branded him Belly Smrt, or White Death, and unleashed every resource to eliminate him. Counter-sniper squads, barrages from heavy machine guns on likely hides, mortar strikes, a reward for his capture, and full-scale artillery volleys from river barges on zones where comm commanders suspected he could be active in the area. Yet their efforts failed, and Haiha continued his deadly spree. Eventually, the Soviets dispatched one of their elite marksmen to take him out, leading to an intense duel between the two. As dusk approached, the Soviet shooter seemed to pull back, standing up from his hideout to retreat. Haiha fired a single shot that struck him in the head. Mere days before the conflict wrapped up, a detonating round struck Haiha in the face, demolishing his lower left jaw. His comrades later recalled that half his features were gone, so they stacked him amid the fallen bodies, convinced he had perished. It wasn't until a slight twitch in his foot caught attention that they understood he was still breathing. He slipped into unconsciousness and remained that way until March 13, 1940, the exact date when the armistice was announced. Over the years, he underwent 26 reconstructive surgeries for his jaw, though his ability to speak never quite recovered. Remarkably, Simo Haiha lived on until 96, passing away in 2002. One might assume the Winter War demonstrated the devastating impact of skilled marksmen, and indeed analysts scrutinized the operation in detail. However, Western nations zeroed in solely on the vulnerabilities it exposed in the Soviet forces. Even Hitler interpreted it as evidence of Slavic shortcomings, which fueled his decision to launch the assault on the USSR. In the end, only the Soviets drew the proper conclusions from the Finnish resistance. After facing those Finnish sharpshooters, they ramped up their own sniper instruction and upgraded their weaponry and scopes. While Germany had preserved sniper units in the interwar period, interest remained low, and the swift advances through Poland and France left little room for such specialists. This oversight would turn disastrous, especially in a riverside metropolis on the Volga. The brutalities of the Winter War were just a glimpse of the larger catastrophe ahead. When the Nazis stormed into the Soviet Union that June of 1941, initial reports from Western experts appeared validated. The Red Army crumbled, vast formations got trapped, and Hitler's blitz seemed on track for rapid success. Then Stalingrad erupted, flipping the script entirely. The Luftwaffe unloaded countless tons of ordnance onto the urban sprawl, leaving most structures in heaps of debris by the end. German leaders believed they were weakening the opposition. In reality, they had crafted an ideal battlefield for the Soviet holdouts. The devastation turned Stalingrad into a hellish maze of broken barriers, fallen levels, and infinite cover spots. Every wrecked edifice turned into a possible perch for a shooter. Combat devolved into block-by-block and chamber-by-chamber clashes, with Wehrmacht troops dubbing it a Rattenkrieg among the vermin. Here, the armed rodents dominated. Lieutenant General Vasily Chuikov assumed control of the Soviet stand and shaped his strategy on dual principles. One was to stay glued to the foe, directing units to close within 50 to 100 meters so enemy guns couldn't bombard without risking their own ranks. The other involved aggressive counter-sniping. To Chuikov, these operatives were vital for non-stop harassment, ensuring Germans never felt secure and gradually draining their manpower via relentless losses. The feats of Soviet snipers in Stalingrad surpassed typical expectations. The deaths were merely one aspect. The true aim was paralyzing German actions through fear. Marksmen deliberately picked off those delivering supplies like rations and drink to the front lines. Thus, any daytime stir drew lethal fire. But it went further. After hitting a target, the sniper would linger, observing as the victim cried out in agony for aid. When rescuers or buddies moved in, another round would drop them. Would you abandon your injured ally to suffer alone, or gamble additional lives on a retrieval, are where the crosshairs were locked on. Their ranking of targets maximised the toll. Top priority went to spotters for big guns, as taking them out crippled the barrage support. Then came the leaders, spotted by their mannerisms, followed by sergeants, since wartime armies faltered without seasoned ones. Next were automatic weapon teams, rival snipers, supply bearers, and radio operators. A particular method from Stalingrad demands discussion, disturbing as it is. We'll handle the details delicately to avoid heavier restrictions on this account. Still, grasping the abyss of that struggle is crucial. German troops found that enlisting the city's abandoned kids for hazardous jobs extended their own survival. In exchange for scraps of food, famished local lads would fetch water from the Volga, something that would doom an adult soldier to a sniper's bullet. Once Soviet officers caught wind of it, they instructed their sharpshooters to target the youths and halt the exploitation. He wouldn't elaborate further, but it was clear this conflict had evolved into a terrifying new kind of warfare. German troops became too frightened to peek out during the day. Unlike shelling, where fatalities seemed like sheer misfortune, this instilled a deeper dread. The certainty that an unseen enemy was peering through crosshairs, judging if you'd survive. It's no surprise snipers drew such visceral loathing, with capture typically leading to execution. Bombardments could end your life, yet they carried an air of chance. A sniper's bullet, however, struck as deliberate, chosen after deliberate observation, deeming you a target worthy of the shot. Fighting an adversary you couldn't even spot was impossible. What stands out about Soviet snipers' feats is how they managed it with gear that's laughably basic by modern standards. Their standard rifle featured a scope with a mere 3.5 times zoom, while German ones in Stalingrad offered even less at 1.5 times. Without tools like distance measurers or trajectory computers, success boiled down to pure talent and hard-won know-how. Emerging from Stalingrad as the most renowned was Vasily Zaitsev, who started as a regular infantryman but tallied 40 German kills in his initial 10 days. That feat got him a proper scoped rifle, leading to 225 total enemy deaths, among them 11 rival snipers. Zaitsev had company though. Sergeant Fedor Pikov notched 344 verified kills, and Sergeant Mikhail Marovichenko hit 210. The city's chaos created ideal conditions for these sharpshooters, yielding many top performers. Due to that intense animosity, snipers rarely got captured alive in the usual sense. If seized, they endured unspeakable fates we won't detail. All sides understood the stakes, so marksmen went to extremes to conceal their scoped arms, getting spotted with one guaranteed a grim end. Still, snipers bore their own distinctive hardships. Stalingrad's freezing temperatures were merciless, forcing them to stay perfectly still for hours on end, poised for the perfect moment. Any twitch to adjust or answer nature's call could give you away, and repositioning to warm up was out of the question. You just had to tough it out. Compounding that was the mental toll of taking lives via scope. Distant kills sans magnification often spared you the details, but up close through glass you saw everything. You could watch your mark for ages, sharing meals, chatting with comrades, scribbling notes, making him all too real, yet still end it. Many WW2 snipers stayed silent about such burdens afterward. A uniquely Soviet twist in sniper tactics caught the Germans utterly off guard. Female operatives. From 1941 to 1945, about 2,000 women served as Soviet snipers. Far from makeshift fillers, they underwent rigorous training as elite shooters tasked with eliminations. The survival stats paint a stark picture of their risks. Only around 500 made it through, a 75 to 80% death toll. They were well aware of the horrors awaiting capture, given Nazi views branding armed women as the epitome of Bolshevik depravity. the Germans slung slurs like .2 or rough equivalents for rifle to strip their legitimacy. Field Marshal von Bock even ordered instant execution for any taken Soviet women fighters. Hence the 2 grenades each carried, one for foes, one for self-defence in desperation. Capture's implications were crystal clear. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, dubbed the Russian Ambridge from hell by her foes, racked up 309 confirmed kills, 36 from other snipers. Hit 4 times, she was pulled out via submarine. Yet the conflict haunted her post-war life, triggering what we'd call profound PTSD for years. Rosa Shanina, the invisible scourge of East Prussia, logged 59 to 75 verified takedowns. Her path started at 14, trekking 120 miles solo to a rail hub for university. After her brother's death, she signed up for sniper prep. At 20, she died shielding an injured comrade, using her body as cover. Her mother reflected, "Perhaps it's kinder that Rosa's gone. How could she go on after? She'd slain so many." Klavdia Kalugina joined sniper training at 17, amassing 257 confirmed kills. Back home at 21, her once dark hair was fully grey. Then there was Tatiana Baramzina, a one-time preschool teacher with 36 kills, who later joined a sabotage op deep in foe territory. When overrun, she held off attackers to protect casualties, dropping 20 Germans till her ammo dried up. Wounded and nabbed, she stonewalled queries on unit sizes, staying mute. The torments that followed are beyond recounting. Upon retrieving her remains, identification relied solely on personal belongings. We'll stop there. The Eastern Front demonstrated the devastating potential of snipers when circumstances worked in their favour. However, the conflict persisted. In the Pacific, US troops were on the verge of encountering an entirely novel form of sniper terror. The Pacific Campaign represented a starkly different environment. Rather than icy ruins, Americans battled amid thick foliage and rugged volcanic terrain. Yet the dread of an unseen gunman remained identical. In fact, the dense vegetation amplified the fear, since in Stalingrad at least structures offered clues to possible sniper hideouts. Out in the Pacific, threats could lurk in any direction. Japanese snipers evolved from clashes with German-trained Chinese sharpshooters in Manchuria. By 1941, every infantry unit usually featured a designated sniper, chosen for exceptional accuracy, endurance on minimal sustenance like water and rice, and the mental fortitude to stay concealed for prolonged durations. They bound themselves to trees to avoid tumbling and exposing their spots if injured. These hides were designed for multi-day occupation, occasionally fitted with makeshift seats in the limbs. Even years post-combat, discoveries of Japanese sniper remnants persisted, tied to branches as desiccated bodies still fastened in place. On Iwo Jima, the extensive tunnel network exacerbated the danger, with spider holes scattered throughout enabling Japanese fighters to emerge, shoot, vanish, and re-emerge from unexpected spots. US forces could never predict the origin of the next bullet. Japanese marksmen deliberately aimed at leaders and medical personnel. Trainees viewed images of American corpsmen and learned that foes would risk numerous lives to rescue a single one. US commanders soon hid their insignia, and soldiers received orders to avoid saluting superiors close to combat zones, as such gestures highlighted prime targets for snipers. The mental toll was overwhelming. It sparked widespread sniper panic, where units sprayed treetops with machine gun bursts at the faintest hint of trouble, unleashed anti-tank weapons packed with grape shot into the foliage overhead, and summoned barrages on any gully thought to shelter adversaries. Novice recruits worsened the situation, as when a comrade fell, raw fighters would freeze in place hunting for shelter, a fatal error that turned the cluster into sitting ducks. Seasoned veterans grasped that constant motion offered the safest bet against hits. Still, that realization demanded a heavy price in casualties. Captives were seldom spared mutually. Japanese forces rigged their casualties with traps. Feigned capitulations drew Americans into traps, and some triggered explosives as aid workers neared. Following repeated such episodes, Allied personnel grew wary of accepting surrenders altogether. Yet if the Japanese sniper peril was nightmarish, the phenomenon that arose in the war's closing European phase was profoundly different, something that left Allied fighters struggling to comprehend. For in the Third Reich's frantic final throes, the Germans resorted to their youth. We must approach the ensuing discussion with sensitivity, as it's a profoundly sensitive topic. What transpired ranks among the war's most harrowing episodes. The Hitler Youth had undergone military drills for years, with German lads instructed in firing, drilling, and obedience. By December 1944, even 14-year-old girls handled pistols and explosives in sessions. As defeat loomed inescapably for Germany, these youthful assets were mobilized. During the Berlin offensive, 40,000 Volkssturm militiamen joined, encompassing 5,000 Hitler Youth assigned to guard Spree river crossings. These weren't battle-tested warriors, they were kids in ill-fitting gear, with helmets wobbling atop their heads and weapons they'd scarcely mastered. Lacking preparation for advanced manoeuvres, their honed shooting skills from endless range time proved lethal. Thus, German leaders deployed them as holdout snipers in hidden posts as lines retreated. Veteran snipers know the value of caution, precise shots followed by timely retreats for future engagements. These lads possessed no such wisdom. Whether due to scant instruction, fervent indoctrination, or sheer inexperience, they held fast and kept shooting until ammo depleted or death claimed them. At the Pichelsdorf bridges, 5,000 youths awaited with rifles and Panzerfausts. Over just 5 days, 4,500 fell or were injured, a staggering 90% loss rate. It's impossible to fully capture the anguish Allied troops endured upon recognizing they faced unyielding child combatants who neither yielded nor ceased fire. Veterans who lived through it seldom spoke of it later. The breadth of sniper operations in World War II eclipsed any prior global precedent, and nothing before or after has matched its scale. Expert snipers took the lives of thousands while leaving innumerable others psychologically scarred. It endures as the most lethal period of targeted killings in human history.